Here in Bradford County, University of Florida Cooperative Extension Agent Jim DiValerio has been working with Mr. Robert Franklin, a strawberry farmer near Lawdy, and helping him to adopt drip irrigation on his strawberry farm. And Jim, how did you get started with this demonstration project here at Franklin Farms?
Bob, last year I visited this farm while they were growing their strawberry crop, and I came out and saw that they were having trouble with their irrigation system being able to adequately irrigate their crop because the drought was so severe. What had been a capable system was not working for them.
So by adopting a drip irrigation system here on this farm, what were the things that you were hoping to accomplish in the demonstration?
Well, I think like on so many other farms in Northeast Florida, the drought was so severe that they needed a system where they could put water directly on the roots. Overhead irrigation tends to run off the plastic top and fall down where the weeds are, and it doesn't reach the root zone. And so drip irrigation would allow us to add just enough water to those crops, and the added benefit of being able to inject fertilizer to feed that crop just what it needs at the time.
So marrying the two together, fertilizer and water, the drip irrigation system makes it a very efficient practice to be able to do that. And I know that in talking with the Franklins, they've indicated that they've also had some other savings as well. They've reduced labor and also had some reduced fuel costs because they haven't had to pump the irrigation system nearly as much as they would have in the past years.
Oh, well, you don't have to do nothing but turn the pump on. That's the main thing, and time it and cut it off when you get ready.
Save time, labor, and expenses.
This is a great opportunity, as you mentioned, here in Northeast Florida. Almost all of our farms are small farms over in this area, so it's a production practice that seems like it's got a lot of attractive application on many of our farms here in Northeast Florida. So here at Franklin Farms, what Mr. Franklin has been able to do is to convert an irrigation system that used to be used strictly for overhead irrigation to now be used for drip irrigation as well as overhead irrigation. And this is the pumping system here next to the well. And traditionally, for the irrigation system to only use overhead, it came out this PVC pipe and went on out into the field. And what we were able to do in working with Mr. Franklin here is to cut into that irrigation line and build our components for the drip irrigation system. And it's very simple to do, very easy. And what we were able to do was to cut into this line and just tee off onto it to build our components. And in this situation, Mr. Franklin has the capability of injecting fertilizer into the irrigation system. And anytime that that's done, we have a couple of things that are required by law. That includes the check valves that are here on this line, and the two check valves, if something were to happen, stop any backflow into the well. Any little bit that seeps past those check valves, if it were to happen, then is drained out through this low pressure drain system and prevents it from ever going back into the well. So that's a requirement here anytime we inject fertilizer into the irrigation system. The next part of the system is the part where we actually do the fertilizer injections. And this is using a Venturi system, a Mozzie injector system, that we can force water to come through here, and as it crosses the Venturi system, it will begin to siphon up the fertilizer solution that we would mix in this container. We filter it on the end here to make sure that no big particles get into the irrigation system. After the fertilizer is taken up and mixed in with water in the irrigation system, the next thing we have to be concerned about is filtering this water before it goes out into the field. If there is anything that gets mixed into the water that needs to be filtered, we're going to catch it here on this screen filter. This black part here that we've added into the system is the filter itself. And periodically we would need to take that filter screen out and clean it to make sure that we have adequate water going through. The way that we can tell if the filter needs to be changed is by using a series of 2 pressure gauges, one here and one back earlier on this line. And what happens is if this filter gets clogged, the change in pressure from one gauge across this filter to this one will show. So if this pressure gauge here shows a pressure loss significant from the previous one, 4 or 5 or 6 pounds of pressure perhaps drop, then we know the filter needs to be cleaned. After the water goes through the filter and we have a reading on the pressure gauge, the next thing we need to do is to make sure that the pressure is not too high before it goes out to the field. Drip irrigation tape is made to operate at pressures in the range of maybe 10 or 12 psi. So in this case, this is the pressure reducer here, and it regulates the pressure down. It's preset at 10 psi. So once the water goes through that, it's reduced down and goes into this 1-inch line and then on out into the strawberry field here at Franklin Farms. And we know that this particular line, we have enough water going through there to irrigate approximately 3,000 feet of drip tape. And in this case, Mr. Franklin has about 2,000 feet of drip tape in this particular zone. So we know we've got adequate water supply to meet the needs of the strawberry crop in one zone. If he were to choose to put in another area of vegetables, what we would probably choose to do is to make a separate zone if he were to put another 2,000 feet of drip tape in that particular zone, because eventually we're going to get over the capacity of what this line would be able to provide for him. So those are the components here at Franklin Farms for this strawberry field, and it has been very easy to make this conversion by utilizing what he was already had in existence here. The interesting part about the fuel here is that when you convert to drip, you use a lot less fuel because you're not having to pump as high pressure, and you typically don't have to irrigate nearly as much, maybe a reduction as much as 50% on water and fuel in this particular system. So it's been a very successful adaptation here at Franklin Farms, and it was simple as just putting these pieces and parts together.